No, but I see it now.
All right, call the Village of Wolverine Lake regular council meeting of July 14th, 2021 to order. Please stand for the pledge of the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And welcome back to Council Chambers, finally. Didn't know if that was coming from. It's been quite a while. So, roll call, please.
Duff.
Here.
Dumont.
Here.
Dorian.
Here.
Mallett.
Here.
McNutt.
Here.
O'Brien.
Here.
Huckrow.
Here. Any additions to business?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. Approval of the agenda. Anybody want a motion to?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dumont, second by Mr. Duff. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please. Or no? We don't have to, actually. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Finally. Haven't done that in a long time. A little rusty. Correspondence and information. We received a letter from Michigan Municipal League for their annual meeting in Grand Rapids. We have a notation on here, financial report from the Tiki Candle sales from Pam Kaznicki, which gives us a breakdown on that. We have a letter or email from Robin Freeman regarding political signs ordinance. And Lakes Area Youth Assistance gave us their annual report. So with that, motion to receive.
Second, or for
Motion to receive and file.
motion. All right, second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So, moving on to the first call to the public. It's an opportunity for citizens to address council on any item. And if you could stand up, speak, state your name, address. We have to open first. So, motion to open the public.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Duff, second by Malik. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay.
Aye.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, my name's Paul Snyder.
If you could,
Podium? Okay.
yep, that'd be great because we got the mic there.
Oh, cool. I'll try to project. My name's Paul Snyder, 555 Laguna Court. I'm also a member of the Planning Commission and liaison to the Water Board. It's the agenda item I'd like to discuss or make a statement about is regarding under new business 12E, the council recommendation to accept the resignation of Mike Hurst. It's that circumstance I'd like to address, with your permission.
Sure.
I'd like to add some context and clarity as to what events transpired to create that problem. Appointments to the various advisory board staff with volunteers have traditionally taken place through the recommendation of those boards themselves after an interview process and discussion of the merits of the applying candidates. Those recommendations are then forwarded to the village council for approval and swearing in of the accepted member. That process was subverted at the last village council meeting. Council appointed someone who had not been recommended by the Water Management Board, but through the evaluation of the candidate's fitness for the position by council, without consideration given to the other applicant, indeed without even mentioning their name. The week prior, the June Water Management Board meeting held interviews for 2 applicants for a seat on the board. After the interviews were conducted, Chairperson Hurst called for the discussion process that would have led to the board making its recommendation. At that time, Water Board member Kathy Duff called into question the process being used for this decision, stating her belief that board members were appointed on a first-come, first-served basis. Chairperson Hurst expressed doubt that that was the case, but nonetheless agreed to postpone those discussions and appointment until after he could find out the proper thing by consulting counsel. What he subsequently found through, I believe, talking with the village manager or administration, that though the appointments are actually made by the board and there's no really written process for that to take place, the village attorney suggests that it's very important to continue to follow the process that's been established, regardless of the person involved. Unfortunately, that's not what occurred. The very next week, Councilman Mark Duff, whose wife's assertions were the reason for the delay of the water board action at the previous meeting, moved to appoint a candidate. It was not the council agenda for the meeting. Indeed, when the call was made for additions to the agenda, none were offered. So that part of the meeting had been closed. To accept new agenda items after that point is a violation of Robert's rules. Robert's rules states that you need to have a discussion of amended agenda items, and you have to have a 2/3 vote of the people present before that can take place. His motion was seconded by Bob Malik, who's council liaison to the Water Board. Mr. Malik explained that the members of the Water Board were unfamiliar with the nominating process. I think it's important to interject at this time that Mr. Malik is the liaison to the Water Board, is indeed familiar with the selection process, and should have corrected Mrs. Duff's assertion on the first come, first served rule at the time and encouraged the board to continue the deliberations to make the recommendation. He did not. At this time, Mr. Mark Giramini, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, remarked that he thought the board was seeking clarification on the process for the deliberations to continue at their next meeting. Mr. Duff asserted that the village council would be making the final decision anyhow and moved to place Mr. Ed Sinkowitz on the water board, which he did in a 6-1 vote, only Mr. Giramini dissenting. There have been several negative consequences to this action. Not the least was the resignation of Mike Hurst. As our chairman has served the Water Management Board with intelligence, integrity, and diligence. The disrespect Mr. Hurst got at this ill-advised and short-sighted decision was more than you should expect any chairperson to take. Another consequence is the loss of trust that was once held by me and others in this community for this council to be consistent and fair-minded in its actions and act with integrity. That being said, I acknowledge and thank President Brian Nedrow. He reached out to some of us that were concerned about the answer, about what happened, and tried to explain for us. We appreciate that. But sometimes you just can't get that toothpaste back in the tube. As volunteers, most of us just want to be of service to our community. We don't expect payment or recognition, but we do expect to be treated with fairness and respect, neither of which happened with that appointment decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public would like to speak? Seeing none, motion to close?
I just wanted to mention that I'm, Carolyn had someone came to the board meeting regarding slice of property.
Okay.
My land that belongs to the city. I don't know whether I should speak now.
Can we get her to go to the podium?
I think we can, I think we can just wait until it's brought up. We can open
Okay,
door that.
that's fine.
That's fine. I didn't know whether you wanted me to speak.
Yeah, that'd be fine. We'll just allow you to speak then. Motion by Duff to close, second by Dumont. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Consideration of the consent agenda, approving the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion on that? Roll call vote, please.
Dumont,
Yes.
Giramini,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Okay, we have no board appointments. So we'll move along to item 10, which is presentations. And item 1 is our 2020 Service Award acknowledgements, and this is something that we ended up doing online. And I think that we thought it would be prudent, since this is our first real meeting back in person, that we could have some presentations in person, so.
Yeah, that's
Dave,
correct.
go ahead.
Yep, gonna go ahead and step to the podium.
Oh, sorry, Joe.
As President Nedrow indicated, these are service awards that we had announced back in December of last year. But again, we felt that it was appropriate to actually make the presentations in purpose, in presence to really acknowledge the work that our staff has done. So the first award would be for Paige Knutson, who anybody who has called or has come into the village office knows. She, along with our other administrative assistant, Tabitha, are the ones that really make things run around here. Mike and Kondak and I and the rest of us, we're kind of behind the scenes, but they're the ones that really get the work done around here, and they're the ones that really serve the residents. Paige wasn't able to be here tonight, but she did ask me to express her thanks to the village for the recognition and for the 5 years of service that she's put in so far. So, second award would be for Mike Kondak. Mike, if I could get you to step up here, please. In some ways, it seems kind of ironic to be presenting a service award to Mike when we have a proposed contract for his successor on the agenda tonight. But be that as it may, I've known Mike for 30 years this year that we've known each other, and he's been invaluable to me in the 8 months or so that I've been here at the village. And as a resident before that, I appreciated all the service that he provided to the community as well. I do not have anything to actually hand to Mike as part of the 15 years recognition. He did get a gift card. We gave that to him right before the holidays because he figured he could use it. I think he put it to use. But, again, Mike, friendship for 15 years of service to the village. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Nice try.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Big shoes to fill, both on a personal and professional level when Mike walks out the door. So, and finally, the other person that I would like to recognize is Andrew Stone. Andy, if you could step up here. Andy, I think everyone knows, is the crew leader in our Department of Public Works. Andy has actually been, well, as of 2020 anyway, he'd been with the village for 30 years, and we're getting very close to 31. He and I were talking about it this morning. That's a long time to work for any single employer. Andy has been invaluable to me in terms of his general knowledge of village operations, and in particular his knowledge of the the history around here and what's going on in the past. So, and I'm always amazed by the breadth of things that he's familiar with, the breadth of knowledge that he has in terms of the functions at the DPS. So, and on top of that, he's not a bad guy either. So I value his friendship, and again, he's been invaluable to me. We have a couple things for him. Number one is a plaque for Andrew Stone, 30 years of dedicated service. And then also 30 years, you deserve something special. So, if you want.
New pair of shoes. Wow. Must be special what you just.
Oh, very nice.
There goes the budget.
Yeah, the 2% raise, you're not going to get that anymore. No, but again, the dedication on, or the inscription on the clock is basically the same as it is on the plaque. Andrew Stone, 30 years of dedicated service to the village. So again, Andy, thanks for your friendship and thanks for your service. So, all right. You bet. Thank you.
Eric, don't run away.
Don't drop the clock.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thanks.
Shake your hand again.
It's beautiful, buddy.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to be able to do at the first meeting back. Thanks to all three of them. Yes. Again.
All valuable members of the team.
Absolutely. So item 2, recommendations and updates from Mr. Powell, our engineer.
I understand that this is going to be a 4-hour meeting, so I'll go quickly tonight. To just update the village, it's passed all the final inspections, and so there are a couple electrical items, not in the new addition, but in the corridor between the two restrooms. That's a very old section of the restroom facility, and so There's a couple electrical issues that are being dealt with, and before they get a clean bill of health from the electrical inspector. But otherwise, the project is totally complete. The sink, the stainless steel sink and countertop is in place there. It's been put together and in place. The contractor waited until that was in place to order the stainless steel counter for the pass-through, for the service counter. That'll be placed on top of the block that's there now, and the door will close down tight on it and be a watertight seal. The plumber then will come in and connect everything up. It just has to run the water service to the sink and the drain to the sink, and that place will be done. There's one last bit of modification, and that's that they want to put another coat of epoxy on the floor. There's some areas there that needed some TLC, and so that hasn't been done yet because the material was put on back order, and they just picked it up yesterday, the additional gallons to be able to do that little chore. I also have something to present to council regarding the expansion of the sidewalk that runs from the front of the building down the side to the service area. It was designed and installed with a 3-foot walkway down the side. That's the minimum width for a handicap ramp and for a handicap walkway. But I think council and I both agreed that it would be much nicer to serve the public on a wider walkway than that. So I ended up with 3 bids to be able to put that walkway and make it 8 feet wide instead of the 3 feet. Add an additional 5 feet on the outside of that walk. JJM, that's Jeff Miller, he gave us a quote of $1,800 to put that additional walk in. The existing contractor gave me a quote for his contractor to do the work at $1,650, but for some reason he has quoted it at only an additional 3 feet wide, not an additional 5 feet wide. So it would be a 6-foot total width of that concrete instead of 8 feet, which is what I asked for, an additional 5-foot width of that. Then I received a quote from one of the contractors that does the work in the village for a lot of people doing their driveways, and it's George Crow Concrete, and all labor and material at $2,805, or essentially $1,000 more than JJM. So I apologize that I didn't get this to you in time to put it as an agenda item, so it's under a presentation that I'm making. And I leave that up to council as to whether or not you can give me some direction to continue with this, or wait until next month, or allow it to go through the administrator as to how to proceed from here.
I'll move, Mr. President, to have JJM add 5 feet to the existing 3 feet for $1,800.
I'll second that.
Motion by Doom, second by Duff. Any other discussion?
It's only another $150, right, for an additional 2 feet?
Over the lowest bid.
Over the lowest bid, that's correct.
It's not
And the difference,
apples to apples
8
either,
foot,
so.
if you put a wheelchair on there
Yeah.
and somebody trying to pass, the additional footage would make sense, so.
Yeah, not to mention, there's going to be people standing in
Oh,
line probably there
absolutely.
too, so having a little extra wouldn't hurt.
That would be my recommendation as well.
With that, roll call vote, please.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Mallett,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Unless council has any other questions of anything else technical in the village, I am done with my presentation.
I have a question about the bathrooms. Were there going to be mirrors installed like there was before?
We took the other mirrors off, and I thought, quite frankly, that they were included in the bid from the contractor, and I apologize. I don't know the answer to that, but I will work with the contractor and with the administrator to make sure that there are mirrors put back up. The other ones were all pretty well stained and discolored, and so certainly new ones need to be placed in.
Okay.
Thank you, Council.
Anybody else have anything for Mike?
Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
We have no public hearing. Moving on to new business item A, contract for a new treasurer. Dave, you want to go ahead and take that for me?
Council, you recall that last month you conducted interviews of a couple candidates for the treasurer position. That the following interviews and discussion, there was a motion that was made to authorize me to offer the position and then negotiate contract terms with Sandy Choate, a resident here in the village. I've had a couple meetings with Ms. Choate. We have come to terms, subject to the approval of council, on an agreement for her to serve as the village treasurer, which you have included in your council packet. Terms are very similar to the ones that we had proposed previously when we were talking about hiring Kathy Behrens to the position. The one thing that is significantly different to this that I will point out to you, just so everything is clear, is in talking with Sandy, through COVID and the work that she's done for the Construction Association of Michigan, she's gotten very used to being an early riser and coming in and getting a head start on the day. And she had asked that she be allowed to flex her time somewhat to make her normal workday 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Personally, operationally, I didn't see a problem with that at all. I talked with Mike Kondak to get his perspective on it. His thinking was that actually the couple hours of peace and quiet before the village hall actually opens up could be very, very productive time for her. And from my perspective, the treasurer's interaction with the public is really very limited. There is some, but there's not a lot. And if someone did happen to come into the village hall on a day when Sandy had already left, it would just be a question of her being able to follow up with them the following day. And that would be no different than if she had to go to a meeting out at Oakland County or was out of the office on personal business or something like that. So, again, I'm comfortable with the terms in the contract. I would recommend approval of the proposed resolution. If you have questions, I can try to answer those.
So, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the contract.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion?
Actually, just recalling, go ahead, Brian, if you want to.
Yeah, the only thing I did see on the contract as I was reading through it was the fact that it states in here that council is supposed to be reviewing for 6-month and annual personnel review. And I called Dave earlier about this, and really, since the treasurer works for the administrator, I think it's prudent. It'd be better for both the employee and administration to be able to provide that through administrator instead of having council do it. I think it'd be more of a fair situation since she's going to be working for.
We're friendly on it.
Agreed.
So that would be the only change I could see. So, and we kind of agreed, talked about that earlier.
Yeah,
So.
yep, and I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So with that, anybody has any comments regarding that or anything else? With that, roll call vote, please.
Malik,
Yes.
Nutt,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pedro,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremini.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And just so everyone's aware that when I talked to Sandy last week, understandably, she was going to wait and provide formal notice after tonight's meeting, so she will be notifying her employer, and she is planning to start with the village on Monday, August 16th.
And hopefully Mr. Conduct will be staying on for a little while, right?
Mr. President, yeah, as long as it takes. I mean, it's, things come up seasonally, annually. I can come back for certain things, and so, yeah, I mean, I think we'll know, when the appropriate time is.
There's still plenty of golf season left after
No, there
August 16th.
Is that July of '23?
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Well, that's been a long time coming, hasn't it? We've tried for a while on that one, so it's nice to be able to put that behind us. Item B, Parks and Rec Board recommendations. One is recommend council release budgeted funds for the fishing tournament.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion? Roll call vote on that.
McNutt,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremini,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Okay, and item 2 is recommend council release budgeted funds for the corn roast.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any discussion? Roll call vote on that, please.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremini,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item C, negotiating committee recommends, item 1, which was recommend council approve the proposed agreement between Village Michigan Fraternal Order of Police Labor Council for 21 through 24.
Second.
Motion by Dumont, second by Duff. Any discussion? Dave, do you want to mention anything on this?
This is these are terms that we've discussed before in closed session, but just to touch on the highlights for everybody's benefit, we're talking about a 3-year contract, 2021 to 2024. In each of the 3 years of the contract, there would be a 2% wage increase. In addition, the village would be establishing a healthcare savings program to help the members of the union fund their retiree health care. The village's annual contribution to the fund would be 1% of the employee's base wages. In addition, using the federal funding through the American Relief Plan Act, we would be providing for a non-pensionable lump sum once a year of 0.5% of base wage bonus to the officers. In addition, in using the same funds, we would be making a 1% contribution retroactive for the 2021 calendar year.
Okay, so that explains that a little bit more clear. With that, roll call vote.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremini,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
and O'Brien.
Yes.
Okay, we were working on that for a while too, so. And also, so item 2 on that is recommend council approve and propose tentative agreement between the village and ASME Local 2720 for 20 through 24. So this was actually retroactive because they were actually working for last year's contract with with basically a letter of extension through the hall. And so this is actually a 4-year contract, retroactive a year, so. So it'll be up in 2024, same as the PD.
Second.
That was a motion by Duff,
I
second
think
by,
actually,
who was it?
McNutt had it, right?
No.
Oh, I thought you said, whichever, it doesn't matter. Give it to Dave. I'll second it.
Okay, is that a motion? That's a
No,
motion.
you-
I thought you did.
Somebody over there said it also.
Oh, we'll have to roll back the tape.
I'll motion. You can second, doesn't matter.
I thought you did, Dave, Mr. Duff, but,
Yeah, we did.
okay. Well, motion by Duff, second by Dumont then. Any discussion? You want to cover this a little bit too, Dave?
Similar
Since you did
terms,
the-
but a little bit different. Again, for each of the 4 years of the contract, the members of the union would be receiving a 2% wage increase. In addition, in terms of the premium pay under the American Rescue Plan Act, it would be 2% retroactive for the 2021 calendar year, and then 1% for both, for the remaining 3 years, for 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24. In addition, the other significant item that I pointed out here, in terms of the union's perspective, is we would be allowing some flexibility in terms of the footwear that they wear on the job as well, which was a significant issue to some of the members of the group. There are some organizational issues, including the filling of a 4th position in the DPW and some restructuring in terms of the chain of command that we will be implementing, but those will be implemented pursuant to a side letter of agreement that's referenced in the tentative agreement itself.
So with that, roll call vote.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremini,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
O'Brien. O'Brien.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes. Okay, item D, does the MERS recommend council to approve proposed healthcare savings program participation agreement with MERS for the FOP, and that has to do with the healthcare savings program, and we had to actually have a separate account set up, so this is authorizing MERS to move forward with that program, so.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Dumont, second by Duff. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dumont.
Yes.
Jeremini.
Yes.
Mallett.
Yes.
McNutt.
Yes.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Okay, item E, Water Management Board. This council accept the resignation of Michael Hurst from the Water Management Board. This was effective on July 5th, I guess. I received the email, and I believe he sent to the rest of the board, and I believe to Mr. Gillum. So,
I regretfully make the motion.
Second.
motion by Dumont, second by Duff. Any discussion?
Yeah, I happen to sit on that board, and I'm a little disappointed that it's become a popularity contest, which this, by hearing comments earlier, but everybody's entitled to their choices. I'm just disappointed that Mr. Hurst didn't come to here himself and express his feelings to us directly. And that's the only thing I have to say. I feel bad that he's leaving the position. I think he's done a good job, or has tried to at the best what is offered throughout the community. And I'm just a little disappointed in how it came down. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay? Art?
In regards to the concerns by Mr. Snyder about the Roberts Rules issues, are those an issue, or was it proper, how it went about?
My understanding is it's council's appointment.
No, I understood that, but in terms of when the motion was made, after the
Well,
agenda had been
it was
accepted.
brought up, I believe it was brought up during a council meeting during a Water Management Board item. So, that was my recollection.
The way I remember it being there,
So-
it was from the water board sent back to council because they didn't know how to proceed with it. We had heard the interviews with the two candidates, okay? And it was sent back to see if there was a procedure. And at that point, I think the motion was made, and this is my opinion, that the motion was made on the best person to fit what would fit into the community for the water board. And that was one of the reasons I seconded it, okay? And that's all I can say.
I don't believe that the Water Management Board sent it back to council as far as a clarification. What I recall was that item was a Water Management Board recommendation. I can't remember what the item was, but it was,
Well,
there was a recommendation from the Water Board, and that was when, at
There
that
was-
point,
At that point, there was no recommendation from Water Board.
there
And
was an agenda item that was brought up,
The agenda item that we,
that
was
when
under
we were
board
discussing
appointments.
about the Water Board.
The Water Board wasn't in the discussion, because it came up under board appointments, where it said on the agenda, none, and then Councilman Duff
Okay, I
made
guess
the
I
motion.
remember that, so.
But, and that's what Mr. Snyder was explaining as well, and so I'm just looking for clarification in terms of Robert's rules. Is that an appropriate action at that time? If the agenda has been accepted, and then a new item is added that was not on there.
I guess I'd have to defer to our attorney on that.
Well, I guess I'm not following entirely. So I'm trying to remember last month's meeting. At the beginning, there was a section for board appointments, or was that a new business item?
There's always it's like item 9 today, board appointments 9, that's what it
Okay.
was.
Either way, I mean, so just because your agenda is approved at the beginning of the meeting, there can be action taken during your meeting if necessary. You know, Robert's Rules is kind of guiding principles. It's not legal requirements necessarily. So if a motion was made at a time that wasn't where it would have been scheduled, it is acceptable.
Okay. I just, I think it's important for the public to understand if the process is okay and appropriate. But I'd just like to also say, I did speak to Mike Hurst, and I've attended water board meetings before he was a chair, and then watched him on YouTube. And, he is one of those people. This village, what makes it a great place is the people. It's not the lake, it's not the parks, it's not the roads, it's the people behind it, and the people especially who are willing to step up and work really hard. And Mike Hurst was one of those people. So it's a really big loss for us as a village. And I think his frustration was more than anything else about the process. It wasn't about the person who was selected. It was about the process that has gone on, where, having chaired a board myself, we interview the candidates and then we make the recommendation. If that's not needed, then why are we doing that? Why are we having them fill out the application with their information, then having the boards interview these folks? Because to some degree, there should be a valuation placed on fit, just as we had in the discussions of treasurer and things like that. And the boards should have some influence on who's working with them, especially when they're going to be handling big issues in the village. And this board does that, the water board. So I think it's very unfortunate that it came about this way. And yeah, I think, we may have the authority to do that, but it goes against the spirit of what should be done.
Mark, I'll say something about the same thing, and that's that I would also like to see, I know that we had the right to do what we did, right, Jennifer?
You did, yes.
Okay. However, I would like, I'll use your language, in the spirit of what we've done in the past, I'd like the recommendations to come from our boards so that we do support our boards and we do give them some latitude, some authority even though we are the final authority, so that they're invested in what they're doing at the board level. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll agree with Mark on, I've tried to watch, real time as many of the meetings as possible. That water board meeting I wasn't able to. And after this went down, I went back and watched and reviewed it. And, I did feel a little, I want to say regretful in a way, because I didn't fully understand what was happening at the meeting itself and then how it came to council.
Mhm.
So, in that regards, I feel like kind of we're hoodwinked a little bit, I guess, if you want to. But even though we were able to do it, again, in the spirit of things, and how we normally done by their recommendations, I don't think that process was fully done.
And I did have a discussion with Mr. Hurst, and in my discussion, I agreed with the fact that I didn't feel that the process was carried out fully correctly all the way through either. I did the same thing that you did, Mr. McNutt. I ended up watching the water board meeting. I did not, I guess, the minutes that are recorded don't necessarily give you a full story of what's going on at the board all the time, but I think I think communication can be better through boards and commissions throughout the village here, and we've had that issue with the Parks and Rec Commission also in the past. So I would like to try to see all of us have better communication between boards and commissions. And it's not the fact that, we did anything really wrong. I mean, it was council's decision to be able to make an appointment. So I've been on a planning commission since '98. We've had certain circumstances where we've had more than one person apply. And at that point, we tried to choose the person that we best felt would be on the commission or whatever board, so.
As decided by the commission.
Right.
Recommended by the commission.
Well, we recommended by, yeah, at that point.
As recommended by.
The planning commission recommended, so.
Okay.
So I guess that's all I have to say at this point. But I'd like to see communication get better between boards, commissions, and throughout the village. So That's one of the things I'm going to be working on, trying to work on forward here. So,
Could we technically rescind the appointment, send it back to the water board, and then,
well, the water board's currently down another member yet, so if the water board wanted the other person on that board, I guess I don't understand why they didn't make that appointment this last meeting, so.
That's because it was tabled to decide the proper procedural, first come, first serve. That was
Not
brought
this
into
last
question.
meeting.
Yeah, not
The last meeting was literally last week.
The last
meeting.
water board meeting.
Yeah, last
Okay,
water board
I thought you were
meeting.
talking about
Yeah,
council. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Why can't we reach out and see if the other person that applied is still interested? I think that would be the first step.
Well, I
And
would
if
think,
not,
I
then
would
we
think the
publish it
water board
again.
would be able to do that. I mean, that's really what we're trying to, that's what
Right.
they wanted. We're talking about having the boards, right? They want the power to be able to recommend, so that's what we're kind of talking about here, so I would think that they would recommend that person to be on the board.
So are you talking about potentially maybe doing some type of an ordinance in your boards and commissions section? It wouldn't be taking away any authority of council, because ultimately it's up to you to appoint those members, but maybe setting up some type of formalized procedure that, council may secure the recommendation from boards or commissions for appointments, or come up with a, kind of what you've always been doing, but memorialize that in your code that says that board or commission, all your boards and commissions listed in Title 8 are going to accept applications and do interviews and give a recommendation to village council. And maybe if that doesn't happen within X amount of days, then village council just goes ahead and makes that appointment. Or, we can get creative with that, but would you want to see something more formal in your code itself?
I think that would make it easier. I think that would improve the communication and take out some of the gray areas. So we can point to
Right.
actual
Again,
language.
you are the
necessary.
ultimate decision maker, and nothing can take that away from you, but maybe establishing some procedures so that there's not, this go after the last meeting and rethink what you did. You followed a procedure, so.
Right.
We have a lot of turnover on our boards too, and it will make it easier when we have newcomers to say, look, if you have questions, we could point to that portion and say, look, this is how it works. And it's still, we ultimately have the final authority anyways as council, but it would be more formalized than you said.
Well, the other thing we've been talking about was having more of a formal training session for people that get on boards and commissions. And there has been a lot of turnover the last 3 or 4 years. When I first got on planning commission and the water board, I was on the water board for eight years. I was planning liaison to that. And there used to be a lot of people that were on those boards for a long period of time. And the chair people were very versed in how to go about procedures. So it really was not, everything was known about how to get new people on boards and commissions. So I think a lot of that's probably been lost because of the turnover in personnel that we've had in the last probably 5, 6, 7 years. So maybe getting back to that and having some formal training for, like we just tried to do with ZBA. That's a very judicial board, and it's a very important board also, but whatever that board decides is on that property forever. So
So what
procedure
we-
needs to be followed at that point.
What we've done in some of our other communities is every time there's a new member on each board or commission, maybe not all the boards and commissions, but certainly ZBA, Planning Commission, maybe your water board, to sit down with that person one-on-one for a half hour and kind of go over do's and don'ts and procedures and objectives of that role. Instead of, it's so hard to corral everyone at one time, especially when you're talking about multiple boards and commissions and getting them together for training. But if you, as the people come on those boards and commissions, just sit down and have kind of a one-on-one with them, then that helps.
I guess I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but if the chairperson at that point would have known that there would not have been first come, first serve, first apply at that point, it would have been taken care of at the meeting at that point.
Correct.
So I'm not saying that, it's just an unfortunate circumstance, I think, at this point. So, how we move forward, it would be, like I said, it'd be nice to be able to have some better communication between boards and commissions and have some formal training for personnel that are on boards and commissions,
Jennifer,
especially chairperson.
Forgive me.
Go ahead.
What's the best way to move forward if we do want to formalize our language to kind of clean things up?
Just coming up with an ordinance that we could adopt for that Title VIII that sets up procedures for all your boards and commissions and how you're going to go about securing applications and reviewing them and interviewing them and making recommendations to village council. And then if there is a vacancy, you know, how will that be handled? Like, for instance, just this evening, you were saying, okay, well, I mean, it seemed to me like there was a suggestion that, okay, maybe Mike Hurst could fill the vacancy on the water board, but then there was another suggestion that maybe we go back to the person who had applied for that position initially with the water board, but if you already have that procedure set up, then you don't have to make that decision. You know, you have a procedure to follow as to how you're gonna secure applications. But we just come up with some language for you to look at and consider.
Go ahead, Dean.
So the only comment I would make, I agree that it would make sense to kind of formalize and nail down the procedure, just as an option, instead of doing it by way of ordinance. We could also have just a formal council policy as to what the process would be. And that allows for a little bit more flexibility, just in terms if the process needs to be tweaked down the road. It's only a question of council amending its policy, as opposed to having to go through two separate readings of an ordinance. Either one would work. I just throw that out as an alternative.
Right,
So,
yeah. The only benefit of having the ordinance is that it's codified and everyone knows where it is and can find it. You know, that's really the only difference between what the administrator is talking about.
Well, I think it'd be prudent that we try to move forward with some sort of structure.
You know, the only thing I want to add, and I probably said my piece, but the council, two of us were singled out, which is fine. I can wear the hat, okay? But 6 of us said yes, okay? 1 of us said no. So we all wear the responsibility,
Right.
okay? That's all, and again, I feel very, very bad that Michael has resigned the way he did, but again, I express that. But again, we all partook in the vote, so. With that, I leave it.
Would a motion be appropriate then to get that moving?
Well, we already have a motion in a second.
I don't mean right now, but after we're done with this.
I don't even think we need a motion.
I don't think you
I
need
don't
a
think we need a
motion.
motion.
I
I
mean,
think we can
We
move
can work
forward.
together and coming
Yeah.
up with some language, and whether it's, you know, given to you as a policy, and you can make a decision if you want it to stay a policy or a formal ordinance and move forward from there. I mean, there's no
Perfect.
urgency. You've gone this long without that in place, but,
I mean, we kind of had a
We'll work
loose
on it.
policy quite a few years ago.
yeah.
I mean, there was like 6 questions that we were supposed to
Yeah.
ask, and
And sometimes, you know, with the policies of council, that's where the problem happens, is people forget that there is a policy in place, and unless you have a central location for that and can identify that, and maybe your new administrator is going to come up with a great plan for codifying all your policies. Make a note of that.
Well,
But,
if you-
I mean, either way, we'll come up with some language and give it to you next month.
if you had like a chairperson's packet, when somebody signed on as a chairperson, that policy was in the chairperson's packet for running that commission or board, I mean, then it's pretty well set in stone. So,
Right.
Like I said, I think there's some things that we need to do, so. Should be able to resent.
Just chime in real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know other cities, villages, and townships have a boards and commissions handbook.
Mhm.
It's just a good guide. We have a handbook here for the village and employees. I think that would be just a great start.
Agreed. Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great start. And that's kind of like initiates that training program a responsibility, gives you the responsibilities of being on.
Lists everything.
Yep, no, that's a great take on it, Chief.
Yeah.
With that, I think we've had enough discussion, unless anybody wants to chime in anymore, but, that roll call vote, please.
Will we know what the motion was again?
So, his resignation.
Oh, okay.
Accept the resignation.
That's fine.
We have a motion to discuss the last item.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Medrow,
Yes.
Duff,
Yep.
Dumont.
Yes.
Okay, item F, resident appeal for road right-of-way permit application denial for 2337 Solano. And I am assuming,
Ms. Casano, the property owner, is
Yes.
here with us this evening, so.
Yeah,
Hi.
thank you for the opportunity, Council, for me to do this appeal to you. Basically, I've been a resident of 2337 Solano Drive for about 34 years. And the existing condition is the same as it was back then. So what I'd like to do now is to improve the conditions that I have, especially on the two-car attached, on the two parking attached structure area. It is basically dilapidating really bad. The asphalt is coming bad. And I like to go to have the whole area done with concrete. The concrete brings a lot of, in my opinion, brings a lot of good perspectives to the area because it's more durable. And so what I like to mention is that I have the opportunity to drive by around the village, and I see many, at least 5 houses that have the concrete, the concrete driveway with the side parking area. And I don't know why I can't have the same, the same thing in my house. So basically, that's what I am looking for the opportunity to improve my driveway and the opportunity to improve the two-car parking area.
Okay, so what I understand here is you want to basically redo your asphalt drive in concrete,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah,
And then you've got that little parking spot out in front
correct.
that you also want to do in concrete.
That is correct, yeah. Now, I understand there is a concern because of the access issue from the village. Maybe what I can suggest is to go into a 4-inch instead of going in a 6-inch in that area, going into a 4-inch. So from the point of accessibility, it will be easier for the village to access if needed. However, I've been in this house for over 34 years now, and the village has never had to access that area, and I don't know if they ever will.
I guess, just a question for Mr. Powell. It's a road right away, Mike, so what's the difference between concrete and asphalt on a road right away? Besides the fact that concrete's more expensive to replace.
Well, it's really a couple issues here that need, this is not on? Okay. All right, let's assume that. All right, so there are a couple issues that council needs to understand. Probably 10, 15 years ago, the village adopted a policy that the maximum width of a driveway was going to be 20 feet. We have some areas in the village that have a hardship, say on Wolverine Drive, to where the garage is 10 feet off of the edge of the pavement. There are exceptions to allow people to be able to park. Otherwise, they'd be parking up and down the sides of the street. So when someone comes in and makes an application for a right-of-way to improve their driveway, We have people that are fine with just replacing their drive the way it is, and the policy says that if that driveway is over 20 feet wide, to replace it, they could do that, and that's just a driveway. If they want it wider than that, unless there's a good reason, the administrator typically holds to that policy and says 20 feet is all that you can do. In this particular case, Ms. Blanca wants to repave her driveway from asphalt to concrete. And let me just put a little sub-note in here. There is absolutely in the engineering, design, construction standards that the concrete depth, thickness in the road right-of-way is 6 inches. And it's not because the village needs access to it, it's because the village owns that area of the roadway and people have the right to turn around in the road right-of-way. So if a truck were to back into and up onto a driveway that was only 4 inches thick, it would be cracked all up and they could very well break it. 6-inch concrete is much stronger than 4-inch, and so that's why within the road right-of-way it's 6 inches. It's not because the village wants to access somebody's driveway. So in this particular case, approval was granted to allow the applicant to improve their driveway in concrete instead of asphalt. However, there did not appear to be a hardship to allow her to pave all the way across the frontage of her property and allow for parking outside of her driveway. There's enough room for parking in her driveway, and she could even widen her driveway up on her own property to allow for additional parking. In this particular case, we're trying to limit the width of driveways because it increases the amount of runoff, and then we deal with runoff and additional, we're plowing snow up into driveway where quite frankly it's not usable then in the wintertime. Bottom line is, if it's repaired in concrete, we're making it permanent from then on because concrete will last for 30, 40 years. Instead, the thought was if it was done in asphalt, when it totally disintegrates, it becomes a shoulder of a road and not concrete pavement, and therefore you're not perpetuating a non-conforming use, put it that way.
But then also becomes an expense issue for like any of us who are owners, because then I have to maintain. I've been maintaining this area for the last 34 years. But as I said before, it's right now, anybody can drive by, and I think I have a little video that I put together, and it shows the condition of that area. So, yeah, I understand what Mike is saying, but at the same time, I believe that, I mean, I drive through the area, through the village, and I saw just today in 45 minutes, because I just suddenly, I said, okay, I have to go over there, and I have to speak about it. But it's, I mean, at least 5 of them. And I am sure that I go back and I got pictures. I go back and I look, and I keep searching around, and I am going to find out more than 5. I am kindly asking everybody to consider and to give me the opportunity, since I am going to have my driveway done now anyway, just to get the whole area. I mean, that's going to be, right now I have another issue, which is that the water comes from what is the name of that street, Ventura. It comes from Ventura, and it goes into that section of my driveway, and it comes through, and it's just going all the way down to the end of Solano. Well, that has to have a pitch towards the street. Now it doesn't. Now it's having a pitch towards my house, and it is eventually going to affect that wall that is a retaining wall that eventually is going to have an issue. I'm going to have an issue with. So, I mean, it's 2 separate concerns that I have.
Well, I guess I really don't know the grade there, but I mean, if you were to concrete pave your driveway, could you cap over the asphalt area, the parking area along the right-of-way and raise that up to, would it be able to raise that up to allow water to drain off like it should be into the road, or?
Certainly, the grades can change. I think the biggest concern is technically, you can't put concrete, a thin layer of concrete over the asphalt.
Right.
So you would be introducing a different trade coming in to do just a relatively small
Okay.
area of asphalt, and that would be much more costly.
Well, also, on our village accounts, there were a couple of pictures of this, if anybody's seen them. Okay, I mean, the homeowner wants to improve the property, and that piece is totally deteriorated. What has the village been doing with it all these years? Letting it go to wherever? They want to improve it. I personally don't see a problem, because it's going to be singled out that it isn't flowing right into the street, where if something had to be done, it can be broke out and work could be done. You know, it's not part of the pavement of the street. And I can understand, you know, they want to improve it. The lady's been a resident here for years, and I don't think she's personally being out of question.
Well, if it was, if we did have to get into it for some reason, I mean, is there anything running right there, Andy, that would require us to dig that concrete up?
No, but I think Mike and I would both agree that the contour of the existing asphalt right now definitely carries the flow of the water from the top of the cul-de-sac down that direction. That would be, if that were gone, we'd probably have erosion issues on Earth.
But if she was to allowed to put that in concrete,
But if they scoop it in concrete, I don't know how wide, I've never seen the drawings on this, and if it were to be existing, it sounds like it's going larger. I don't know.
No, she's only asking to replace what's there
what's
now
there?
in
What is there,
concrete.
right?
right?
No-
I guess I'm
no-
just, what I'm trying to understand is if she did do it in concrete, the 6-inch concrete like you'd mentioned, is there going to be any drawback from the village's standpoint, except for the fact that it's concrete right on the road right away there?
Right now, the road is obviously asphalt, so there'd be a psychological division between the edge of the road and the concrete. The contractor is responsible to place the concrete in the best interest of the village to deal with the stormwater. So it would in fact address what Andy's talking about. It would be put in to today's standards, flowing out towards the edge of the road so the water could be dealt with, instead of collecting it in that area. So there are pros and cons. It's just a policy that we have to be a little bit careful of. If there's not some good reason to allow a deviation, the neighbor might want it, the neighbor down the street, and pretty soon we have a 40-foot wide roadway instead of a 20-foot wide roadway.
Yeah, but this is no different to what I mean, the water has come down. Is ever since the street was resurfaced, the water has coming in more and more towards that section of the house, the front of the house. So I think it's for the interest, not only mine, but for everybody, to have the slope going towards the street instead of coming into my property. I mean, that's as a homeowners, I think that's, or anybody who's a homeowner is going to see this and bring up that point.
I guess let me ask you a question too then. As far as parking goes, I mean, because that's pretty tight to be able to park on that little shoulder and not be on the road. I mean,
It would have to be a parallel parking space,
Right.
not pulled in straight in.
it's just a pretty tight area, that's all.
Correct.
Yeah.
So are you using it as a parking space on a regular basis, or?
Not really, but I'd like to keep that option. It's a nice option that I have, and I don't like to lose it, and I like to keep it in concrete. I mean, the 6 inches is fine. I don't have a problem with that. The only reason why I brought up the 4 inches is because if the village needed access to it, then that would be like another option going to the 4 inch. But 6 inch is good. I don't have a problem with that.
It's, quite frankly, I don't think it'll hurt anything. It's already, the area is already accepting the storm water because it's already impervious. It's just a matter of sticking with the policy of the village, and this is outside of that, and that's why she appealed to the administrator and now to council.
What's everybody else's thoughts?
It's not new. I mean, it's existing. It's there.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, it's been there.
Yeah, there's improvement there.
I mean, I think that the only issue that we have is we'd be deviating from our policy, right?
Right.
And which could be a problem. Like Mr. Powell was saying, we can have all the neighbors suddenly wanting to pave their front yards. And it would be difficult to tell them no.
Except that hers is existing.
It's existing,
It's
yeah.
existing.
Yeah. It's just changing
I
material.
realize that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I noticed my neighbor, I think, went through this same issue and could not put the concrete or the asphalt in, so he put pavers in. Pavers were somehow okay.
No, pavers weren't somehow okay. He
Oh, he's
did
got
that, he did that without the village's permission.
Oh.
Oops.
Oh, no.
And you live over on Commerce.
That's right, I'm on
Don't know
Ventura.
where that neighbor is. You're not his friend anymore.
So essentially, we're acting as a zoning board of appeals right now,
Pretty much.
on this subject, I guess, so.
The other option is what, she could repave it in asphalt?
Well, it comes to the maintenance, because that's what I am doing now. I'm being maintained.
I want you to have concrete too. I would want concrete if I lived there. That's not what we're dealing with, though.
Yes.
It's just replacing the same surface.
No, I saw that.
So I guess question, would we be able to work with a contractor to create the pitch that we want to have? I guess that's the question.
Oh, absolutely. We have standards, and the concrete contractors work with us very well. So it's not an issue. Will it work? It's existing there. She would like to change it to concrete. It's not going to increase the stormwater runoff. It is a change in the policy, and therefore that's why the appeal process was put in place.
Yeah, I think the only issue is concrete or asphalt. In
Correct.
all other respects, the issues can be addressed.
And it is replacing an existing piece
Mhm.
of
Well, again,
debris at this point.
I can understand the asphalt, if she was to asphalt it, but it's gonna cost her a separate contractor, and she could probably get the same thing done with concrete as she could to have an asphalt person come in and contractor come in and do that extra little bit.
Without a doubt.
So, or even a little less money, so, and have a better product. So I guess the question is, whether we deviate on this particular property to have that little piece allowed in concrete, or require asphalt, so.
When was Solano last resurfaced?
It was done in the very last roads that we did.
That
So
section
Solano
was-
was virtually brand new there. And so this concrete, the way this works is when concrete's done, the edge of the pavement is saw cut. And so there's a nice straight line there, and so there's a nice delineation between the asphalt and the concrete.
So even though that was in the right of way, the village did not pave that section. So that,
That's because it's considered driveway,
Right.
not part of the road.
okay.
That's my question.
Well, any other comments?
I'll move to allow the concrete.
There we go.
I second that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so it would be to allow concrete on road
As
right-of-way.
proposed, 6 inches thick for the area submitted on drawing.
And would it
25
be,
feet by 11.
would you be able to add a friendly to it that the village is able to work with the contractor to require grades?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Forgive me for not mentioning that, actually.
Okay?
Yeah, I think the expectation would be that in all other respects, the contractor would have to comply with the standard terms and conditions of one of our right-of-way permits.
That is correct.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mallett,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Okay. Think you should be good to go.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
You guys are great.
Ms. Monte works with us very well. She's a very friendly young lady, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your help too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's going to change.
Okay, next one, resident request to purchase village-owned property located east of 1170 Del Monte. There you are.
Anyway, I found that very interesting, talking about water on driveways, since I have had a water issue on my driveway for 30 years, which has never been able to be fixed, because I was told when I put in my cement driveway that I was unable to have the flow go back into the roadway. So I still have the bottom of my driveway flooding with water or ice, depending on what season it is, and it's still continuing to this day. Could I just get your name and address? Oh, Carolyn Hetzel, 1170 Del Monte Street. Anyway, that's not
Okay,
why I'm here
we're
today.
That's right.
That's a side issue that I've had, and I guess I've just learned to live with it. My issue is I also own a parcel of land next to my residence at 1170 Del Monte. I've known this for probably 10 years, that there is a small slice that is public property or owned by the village. It really became more relevant to me because I would say about 2011, I had a very large tree that I subsequently found out was on village property that fell across and did damage to my neighbor's yard. It was a 90-foot oak tree. I don't know if you folks were here when that happened. But anyway, I was one of the lucky ones. I happened to have insurance that paid for it, but subsequently I found out that that was a village tree, and probably you folks should have cleaned it up. Anyway, I am currently been maintaining that slice of property for 30 years, because I've been moved into the village in October of 1991 and maintained it, and I'm here to apply for ownership of that property at a nominal cost or fee, since I have maintained it, cut the grass, and so forth during the last 30 years. So I'm here to ask the council to grant me that property for a nominal amount.
Okay. So this is a separate, it's not road right of way, it's
No, it is
outside
a
the
slice
road
of
right of way. Is that right?
property
Is that correct?
beyond the right of way.
So it's between the
So
right of
my-
way and your land.
Yes,
So that's
right.
the right way.
Ms. Olowski and Mr. Powell and I actually took a look at the plat maps before the meeting started tonight, and it does appear just to be village property. It's outside of the right of way.
Right, just the same as
between-
we do have public property on Del Monte that a lot of people don't realize. There's an easeway down to the lake
Oh, yeah.
beside a neighbor who has had some, well, the previous neighbor had some issues because he wanted to put
Yeah, there's
pavement
Promenade. I live
at
in a
the bottom
subdivision,
of
I
his
know.
driveway, which he can't because that's a public parking place.
Yep, very aware of that
no
property.
one in the neighborhood knows about it. Only the ones who've been here for many years realize that, and nobody even bothers to, to go down that way, so.
Okay.
Anyway, that is my agenda, is that piece of property.
Are you trying to build on that piece of property?
No, it will stay vacant. I would just like to own it since I've been maintaining it
Would that
and
sliver
taking
make
care of it.
this lot, would it make it buildable?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, it's just, it's a very small pie-shaped.
Well, I understand that, but
Slice.
lot 41 looks like it's unbuildable now.
It's not,
If you added this sliver onto it, would
no,
it then become?
it's still not
buildable?
going to make it any different. It is basically my backyard at the side.
As far as,
I'd like to get an answer from somebody on the council as to whether this would become buildable.
I don't believe it would be. I don't know the square footage, but I don't think it's,
No, it's not a
Who owns the
buildable
property to
structure.
the right of the sliver?
that's road right of way.
Oh, it's right away? Okay.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to build on it anyways, because you wouldn't be able to have the setback.
Setback, yeah.
You wouldn't
Okay.
have enough square footage.
I don't think there's enough square footage for R1B.
That's
No,
right.
I
Yeah.
have
Okay.
no plans to build
Yeah.
on it. It's just
So I guess,
principle of the fact that I've been taking care of it.
I guess my question is if we were looking to be able to sell or whatever, this piece of property to Ms.
Excellent.
Hexel, how would we go about that then? I mean, what would be involved in?
What I'm looking for at this point is direction from council as to whether or not council would like to even give further consideration to potentially selling or conveying the property to Ms. Etzel. There are ways I can work with equalization, because this is public property right now. We don't have any kind of a value on the property. I mean, unless you wanted to sell it to her for $1 for purely nominal consideration. I could work with Oakland County Equalization to determine an approximate value for the property that could provide a starting point for further discussion with her. But before I spend Mike Lawalski's time and my time in trying to come up with a dollar figure, I just wanted to find out if this is something that council would potentially want to consider. And if so, then I'll work with the county and I'll follow up with Ms. Hetzel, and we'll see if we can reach a possible agreement that we can bring back to council for your consideration at a later point. That's what I'm looking for.
I guess my viewpoint at this point is, that's such a small sliver, I don't know what the village would do with it anyways.
Well, yeah, my question is, why is it
Yeah.
there anyway?
So we
Right.
looked at the plat
No
before,
idea.
and it does show that this is a parcel on the plat, but I have no idea why the village owns this parcel, because it's not, normally on plats, if it's a promenade or a park or a road, it'll be dedicated to the lot owners or to the public. And there's no reference to this. I mean, you know, the writing is this tiny, and I was looking at it in 5 minutes before the meeting, so it was kind of hard to thoroughly read it all, but nothing jumped out at me as to what this is exactly. So I don't know if there was like some kind of utility purpose for that, or, I mean, it's not that close to the lake, so I don't know what the purpose would be for acquiring that. A tax parcel, maybe?
The only thing that I can see, Jennifer, is from my experiences, the promenade does begin just across the street of Del Monte from
That was
that.
probably for parking.
And if, however this area was plotted, historically, if that road wasn't even set up, because I know that the names and the streets have changed
Yes.
from the original plot maps and the way they are now, it could have been the very beginning of the promenade that went to the lake and go in that direction. Is the only useful purpose that I can see, is not utility.
I mean, again, without looking further at the plat, it looked like it was designated as a parcel on the plat, but I don't understand why, or what.
Yeah. Well,
Nobody's gonna put a house on that. I don't know
it
why
kind of
they-
looks to me as, if you follow the roadway, that arc of the road there, that follows basically the southern boundary line, and then that the road kind of goes northeast there, and that runs along that tangent line that intersects her property line to the north there. So it could have been, it might have been a surveyor issue, well, back when the subdivision was platted or something. Who
Well,
knows,
Brian-
just an oversight or whatever, but.
I've been here 44 years. At one point, Del Monte was blocked off going to Mello. Okay? And I remember the discussions when the subdivision was being paved, and Mike, I don't know if you were involved then or not, but it wasn't totally surveyed. The new asphalt was put where the gravel road was. Okay? They didn't go in and survey everything
Right.
and say,
Yeah.
hey, the lot line's here and this one's over here.
Kind of like Oak Island.
They went on to where the road was.
Uh-huh.
And they took the berm out that separated Del Monte leading into Mellow.
Could we make it road right-of-way just the same? Could we just make that piece road right-of-way?
Not if you want to move the telephone pole
No,
at the
I
end
mean,
of the
you're,
corner.
it is what it is on the plat.
Right.
So you can't change the plat, where the right-of-way is in the plat. I mean, the right-of-way is probably not even where the right-of-way is on the plat,
Right.
quite honestly, because it never really is. But, it's a parcel on this plat, so you
Right.
own it. You'd be selling it like you'd be selling property that you own.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion that we have the administrator, and if needed, the attorney, look in what
Investigate
the
it.
possibilities are, investigating, to be able to sell this piece of property to the lady.
Motion by
Is that
Malik.
what-
I'll second that.
We'll get Jeremy this time.
Makes sense.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Look
Thank
into
you
it
very
and try and
much.
find out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck we'd be able to do with it anyways, really.
Well, another piece of, another piece of grass to cut. That's right, that's right.
The same thing with sheds.
So Ms. Hetzel,
Because it's
Ms.
technically
Hetzel,
off.
Yeah.
Jennifer and I will work on this, and then I'll get in touch with you,
And
okay?
keep cutting.
Actually, I got a nice row of wild flowers.
So do we cut the road right away there?
Corridor.
No, I don't.
I don't
I
think so.
know exactly, I live over on Thurston and Ellen.
Okay, well, we're through that one. Item H, second reading and adoption of the ordinance 154A-1, which was a stormwater management ordinance from last month.
So moved.
Motion by Dumont,
Second.
second by Duff. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item I, second call to the public. Oh, we have a second call to the public. We haven't had one of those for ages. I almost forgot we even had those.
And there's no one here.
And there's,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody needs to speak on the second call.
I would
Now, let's not go too far.
But I don't think you can.
We'll have it run to that person.
Being that I.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that would be fine.
With that, we'll bypass the second call to the public. Item J, resolution approving the local road improvement matching fund program cost participation agreement with Oakland County.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, Ken. Motion by Duff, second by Dumont.
No.
We're talking about Malik, sorry. I was beating up on the
Cruise
microphone.
control at that point.
He's better looking than me.
Yeah, that was Cruz, yeah.
You're an autopilot.
Any discussion on this? Okay, roll call vote for that one.
McNutt,
Yes.
O'Brien,
Yes.
Pedro,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Okay, grass cutting bids for the village owned property. This is for the balance of the summer, I guess, probably, until the end of grass cutting season, I believe.
Correct.
You want to give us an overview, which is pretty simple, but
Yeah, after a closed session discussion regarding budget issues and contract negotiations, council had directed me to obtain some different quotes for the village's grass cutting services for the rest of the year. I think everybody probably knows that if you look at the big map of the village, there are lots of different pieces of property that are cut in different locations. And in the interest of simplicity and trying to get something back to you quickly, I thought that the easiest way to get a quote would be to get a quote to cut Clara Miller Park, because that's the biggest chunk of village property. That would still mean that the rest of the property would have to be done by the DPW staff. But again, that, given the roughly 17 and a half acres that Clara Miller Park is, that would free up a lot of time for the DPW to do other things while they're shorthanded. So I contacted 3 companies, eventually received 2 quotes. The quotes are contained in the memo that I got for you. They're slightly different in terms of the services that they're offering. The price is not. The bottom line is for U.S. Lawns out of Pontiac, which is the company that is currently doing the trimming for Commerce Township, it would be a total of $500 a month, and that would be for a bi-weekly cut, so 2 cuts a month, and then 1 weed whack every month. And then the other quote I received was from Brian Services in Milford, which was for a weekly cut and a bi-weekly trim for $869. I asked the people at Brian's if they could quote me a price for the bi-weekly cut and the monthly trim, just so we could say we were looking at apples to apples. And they got back to me and they indicated that they really didn't feel that they could, because they felt that the cutting schedule they were proposing was most appropriate. Because they said if they went to a bi-weekly cut, it would slow down their cut. It would take them longer, so the price would actually increase above the price that they gave me for the weekly trim. So those are the quotes that we have. It would seem to me that given that we're talking about something for the next couple months, that U.S. Lawns would be the way to go at this point. I'll follow up with them and make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of exactly what they're proposing to cut before we finalize something. But if this is a direction that council wants to go in, I think U.S. Lawns is the way to go.
Yeah, plus I think the fact that we're in the situation we are with the DPW being down the personnel that we are, that it's prudent we need to get something, a little relief in that area.
How often is it normally cut?
Usually,
I think it's
every
usually
week.
about
With full crew.
Oh,
Yeah, with full DPW crew, what's it normally cut? Every 10 days?
week and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it takes quite a bit of time, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the fast mower we bought a couple of years ago.
And
That's just a
for
lot of
everything.
property.
That's for all the village property, so not just Clear Mill.
Yeah. Every 10 days.
So it'd be the end of courts and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So it includes all that, so.
I did.
I'll second
Yep, that was a motion by Dumont, second by Duff. To proceed with bid from U.S. Lawns.
David, have you talked with anybody in Commerce as to how they feel about U.S. Lawn?
I have not, no.
I happen to know somebody that's on the DPW and for Commerce, and he was the one that recommended them, and they've had them now, I think this is either second or third year, and Commerce has been very pleased with the job that they do. And then again, this is hearsay, word of mouth, but this is someone that does work for the Commerce DPW.
Good.
I'm fine. I can reach out to Larry Gray and just touch base with him and just kind of confirm that
Right.
before we go forward.
I think it makes sense to. With that, any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Brian?
Yes.
Nedrow?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Nutt?
Yes.
Right. This is from the building department regarding our soil erosion permit fees.
This is a recommendation that we increase the permit fees for seawalls, decks, patios, and landscaping. The fees for demolition, new construction, reconstruction, in addition, would remain the same. But again, the increases that are recommended are based upon what the building department, specifically what Tabitha Linsmeyer is seeing in terms of the number of inspections that are being required on a typical seawall, deck, patio, or landscaping job.
Makes sense, I guess.
What do you need from us?
Just a motion to,
Motion to approve the increase in the soil erosion permit fees for seawalls, decks, patios, and landscaping.
Second.
that was a motion by Duff, second by Dumont. Any other discussion?
And I believe I'm correct in saying, there is no profit to be made in this. You know, this pays for the inspectors to go out and everything involved. I mean, it's an exchange of dollars, technically, you know, with them applying for the permit with the inspections. So the public's aware that, you know, that it's not a benefit to the village.
That's absolutely correct. And in terms of the bond that we take, as part of it, any of the bond that is not used to cover the
refunded.
inspection fees is
Right.
refunded to the applicant after the inspections are completed.
Well, like I said, I just, so people are totally aware of what's going on.
It's a cost cover basis.
Okay. Roll call vote on that one, I guess.
Pedro?
Yes.
Duff?
Yes.
Dumont?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Malik?
Yes.
McNutt?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
Okay, item M. Authorize village attorney to review portions of the zoning ordinance regulating signage and as appropriate draft proposed amendments to be reviewed by the planning commission and village council.
Council, as I indicated in the memo I provided for you, basically since the day that I walked in the door here at the village in late November, we were getting complaints from residents about what they believe to be violations of the village's sign ordinance, specifically the regulations that we have regarding political signage. After we had received a number of those, I talked a little bit with Ms. Alowski. I think she had a chance to take a look at our ordinance, and also she's familiar with, as am I, a decision a few years ago from the United States Supreme Court involving municipal regulation of signage based upon the content of the signs, which is really what we're talking about in terms of political signage. So I provided you in our communications section tonight the most recent complaint that we have received, but there have been others, including an unrelated complaint from the same person, but other complaints from other people. This isn't an issue that's going to go away. I feel that it's appropriate for maybe us to tackle this question now so we can get any ordinance amendments taken care of before next year when the election cycle starts up again. I brought this to council first because obviously we are going to be spending some money on attorney's fees to have the review done and to have potential ordinance amendments drafted. But I think it's something that we need to do sooner or later, and the sooner we get started, the better.
Move to authorize.
It's going to take a while to get this done, too, because it's going to have to go
Planning.
through planning process and
Right.
public hearings and such.
Yeah, because our sign regulations are contained in the zoning ordinance.
Mhm.
So these are really zoning ordinance amendments that we're
Right.
talking about.
So that was a motion by Dumont.
Second.
Second by Jeremy.
So is part of this, and forgive me, I didn't read that correspondence, but would flags be included as well then?
So the Reed case, essentially the test in the Reed case is if you have to read the sign to understand what kind of sign it is, then that's unconstitutional. You can't have regulations in place that require you to read the sign to understand what it is. So you can have categories of signs, like temporary signs and monument signs, but really it's taking it further and having subcategories of signs, like garage sale signs or campaign signs. You have to put them all in the same classification. So you can still regulate things like setbacks and size, but you can't regulate the content of the sign. And if you're giving like sub-classifications to signs, essentially the court is saying you're regulating the content by doing that, by labeling political signs. So flags would potentially be a type of maybe temporary sign. So we just have to look at, I mean, you really have to dissect your whole sign ordinance to do this. And we actually started talking about it, Chief Bellsworth and I, about 4 years ago. And
Right after the ruling came down, we had
yeah.
discussions.
And so we had talked about doing those amendments at that time, and then you had some changes in your administration a couple times, and then COVID, and so now here we are. But I mean, it's going to be a thorough analysis of your sign ordinance, just because of the nuances now of the court ruling. But it's good to look. I mean, I don't know when the last time, I can't recall the last time we actually looked at your sign ordinance in depth.
5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was about 5-6 years ago we ended up going, because we ended up, when all the LED signs came out, we ended up going through it. Yep.
Yeah.
From planning.
Actually, it was probably closer to 10 years.
So
Was it really?
Yeah,
Because
I
was
was
on
flies
thinking
when
that
you're
When
too.
they okayed the credit union on Oakley Park.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
at least
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yes.
Was it really?
Yes.
Jeez. Okay.
So in Sally, your planning consultant too will have, you
Mhm.
know, some, you know,
Right.
they're doing this in all the communities and have been for a number of years now, so.
Well, is that something that you might be able to just write an opinion on a short basis, and then we take it from planning, and then you go from there?
I already wrote an opinion on it.
Okay. Well, good. There we go.
Yeah.
You got it started.
Yeah, so your administrator has that opinion.
Okay.
And he can just work with Sally
Okay.
in our office or
Super.
whoever we can coordinate all of
Yeah,
that.
okay. Well, goes to planning, and then we move forward, I guess, probably then.
Mhm.
That's what it sounds like, huh? Cool. Planning's gonna have something to do besides a master plan here shortly.
Give me a time.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, well, we have a motion in place, so any more discussion? With that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Great. Next item, Mr. Gillum requests council move into closed session to discuss performance evaluation.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Duff, second by Malik. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And that was after agenda item 17, so we are clear to go on work session. I don't know if we really have anything to
Make a motion to waive
forego.
work session.
Motion by Dumont.
Nope.
Everybody's
I'll
Duff,
second
sorry.
it,
Okay, we'll go that way. Second by Dumont to forego the July 28th work session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries on that. Any
Mr.
pending business? Yep.
Just reference the July 28th date, we were waiting, we expected that the work session would be foregone this month, but we've had some discussion, Mr. Powell, Mr. Condit, and I, in terms of the petitions to establish the special assessment district to connect the sewers in the village. As of today, we're up to 33 residents.
Great.
That have signed the petitions. So we are looking at potentially having an informational meeting on that Wednesday, the 28th, here at the Village Hall. So,
Can't the three of you have it?
so if
We could
those
be
residents
invited. I
that
try.
that have signed the petition, once we have a firm date, again, whether it ends up being that date or another, that's the date we're shooting for.
Mhm.
But we'll notify everybody that has signed the petition. We'll also have information on the website, but I would just generally encourage anyone who's interested to keep their eye on the website.
Good.
But,
I'm glad we were finally moving forward with it. I know
Yeah.
we've been trying to get that SAD in place for a while. So, super. Okay. Well, we still cancel the work session.
Yes. You guys get a night off. Some of us don't. So,
Did we vote on that?
Yeah.
yes.
I didn't think we voted on it yet.
No.
We had the motion, but we didn't vote on it. This was discussion, I thought, right?
Yes. We said all in favor.
I could have sworn I did too, but.
Yeah.
Did
you
we
know
vote
you
for it,
did.
Tammy?
We did.
Oh, you did.
We did.
Okay, see, okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we voted on it.
That was a tense one.
Any other pending business?
Nothing for me. No, thank you.
Update from Police Chief Bellsworth.
I'm going to jump up here just to make it a little easier for me to have the notes and read. Couple of things. First of all, Deputy Chief John Wachowski will be retiring in August. It's going to be hard to see him go. He does help me a lot. We've started the promotional process for an additional sergeant's position, and I've received letters of intent from 4 of our 5 officers to take the exam. It's a fairly long process, just so you're aware. I give them 60 days of a study period, which each candidate is given a bibliography of books to study, a written test to be given early September, and then they're going to be interviewed by an oral board made up of local department sergeants, lieutenants, and captains. And we hope to have a new sergeant in place by probably mid to late October. That's the plan. We're also going to be posting for a new part-time officer soon. This is going to supplement our full-time officers and make up the hours that were filled previously by Deputy Chief Wachowski. So congratulations to Mr. Condict on his 15 years, as well as Mr. Stone on his 30. I won't see that. I'm going to save my emotional speech until August, but I also want to let you know, some of you had talked to me before regarding body cams. We do have one. Should have been here already, but it's still in the mail, UPS. But I did come across this week a grant, so we're investigating that. It is a one-on-one grant, so we basically purchase one, federal government purchases one. So, but that will not cover the cost. It's just the cost of the cameras. I've looked into it a little bit more. It does not cover the cost of the storage for the cloud or the redaction ware that we'll need, so software that we're going to need. So that really, when it comes down to it, that's going to be the major cost, is the storage as well as the redaction subscription, because they no longer offer you a package where you can buy the redaction software. You have to perform or have a prescription for it or subscription for it. So that being said, I think that's it. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Mike. It's going to be interesting not having you around, but I really appreciate you and all your hard work you've done for not only me, but the police department as well. So thank you.
Thank you. With that, update from Treasurer Condick.
Tax bills are in the mail, receipts are flowing in, business as usual, everything's okay.
Wouldn't have expected anything different. Update from our administrator.
A couple miscellaneous points. For anybody that isn't aware, we did conduct the Goose Roundup back on Thursday, June 24th. Thanks to all the residents that participated in that, including the guy that snatched up the last Canadian goose, President Nidro.
I only carried it on.
Yes.
I didn't snatch it up.
So, but if anybody hadn't heard, we rounded up a total of 134 geese off the lake this year, which by all accounts is a record. So,
And thank goodness we had a pen. Atlanta, actually.
Yep, somewhere up near Atlanta, Michigan is where these were being transported.
Not far enough, but.
We hired a company out of Holly that came down and climbed into the pen that we had set up and physically gathered up the geese and then put them in cages on the truck and then drove them up north.
More humane than what the DNR did to the swans, shaking their eggs.
So we have less geese on the lake.
Yes.
Fun was had by all.
So again, thanks to everyone that participated, and also special thanks to Doug Nye, who's the one that actually
organized it
and no pun intended, but rounded up the volunteers.
And special thanks to the DPW for putting the pen up this year.
And it was we had asked to have an extra large pen, and we needed every
one of
it
it,
there was in the pen. So.
They probably will be. Actually, interesting fact is none of them were tagged. So we got rid of a bunch of them. I think there was 95 juveniles and the balance was adults. So there was quite a few young ones on the lake. So
Compliments, commendations to Chief Ellsworth and the police department for Tiki Night this year. It was a huge success by all accounts, and thanks to the Oakland County Sheriff's Department and the Walled Lake Police Department for the support they provided for our officers. So, just an update, the weed harvester has been down. We continue to have some problems with the fuel line on the harvester. We've ordered parts. The parts are coming from out of state. We're trying to track down the parts. As soon as we get those, hopefully we'll be able to get the harvester back on the lake and put young Mr. McNutt back to work. So
he's itching to get back on.
Yeah.
It's his wit.
And then also just an update for everybody. If you weren't aware, I received notice late Friday afternoon from the Oakland County Health Division that because of high E. coli levels, the county had shut down the beach over at Spring Lake Heights Annex Number 1. They came back out on Monday, did additional testing on Tuesday, and the levels are back down now. The beach has been reopened.
That's the south side.
Had enough rain.
Annex.
Yes.
Washed everything out.
Yeah, and it was because of all the runoff. all the rain that we've had. That's the problem, so. With that, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
We have our can of cutters.
Any village resident that has not been into the village hall recently can stop by the counter upstairs. Through the county's program, we use county money to buy insect repellent to help with the West Nile virus program. So we have a can available for any resident that's interested, so.
The ticks were bad this year.
Anecdotally, I've heard that there are a lot of ticks. I haven't spoke to anyone that specifically had a problem.
With that, council comments. Mark, start us up.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Great fireworks, and everybody around me had a great time, and it sounds like everybody else did too. And the tiki candles and everything just looked great. And July 20th, coming up on Tuesday, is our next Tuesdays in the Park at 5:30.
And the last one was pretty well attended.
Great.
Yep.
150 or so people. Kids are having a great time. Parents even had fun. And wrap the Oakland County grant that we received. They do a phenomenal job.
Good. Mr. McNutt?
Yeah, just my comments appreciation to Chief and his team for Tiki Night and policing the lake during the whole weekend. I think it was very, very nice and highly successful. And second, just, it's unfortunate that, our chairperson of Water Council is no longer there. I think that was a loss.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yep, I agree. It was a great time on July 4th. We were out there. We had a wonderful time. And congratulations to Paige, Mike, and Andy on their achievements. Appreciate you guys' hard work.
Mr. Malik?
Yeah, congratulations to the three, Paige and Mike and Andy. They all do a good job, or they wouldn't be here. But, I think I aired my feelings earlier in the meeting, and I'll just leave it at that. And thanks to the chief and all the other participants in the 4th of July festivities.
Mark?
Chief, thanks all your people and all your hard work. Turned out great. Thanks to Mike, Andy, and Paige. Congrats, Mike. And that's it.
Yeah, and I'll add, Mike, thank you for being willing to work with Sandy moving forward and pass the torch gently. And you didn't say, I'm out, as you could have.
It's 4. Yeah, no big flame.
Okay, a couple things. First of all, I mentioned the tiki candle sales earlier, and so Pam usually comes. She tries to come to these meetings, but and Joanne Sullivan did the same thing before, but I probably should. I just want to take a couple seconds to note that tiki candle sales were up a little bit. Went from candles sold last year was like 456, went to 487 this year, which was good news. Looks like pricing is going to go down a little bit next year. And just wanted to thank the volunteers that helped sell them. Joyce and Don Boca, Kathy and Dave Carrico, Vicky and Bill Lang, Dolores and Bob Malik, and me and my wife, and also Pam's husband, Tom. And shout out for Tabitha for putting the flyer together. So there's a couple, I think like $170 went to $121 actually was a change that ended up going downwards and upwards for next year's candles. So with that, what else was there?
Make a motion to go to closed
Not
session.
yet, hold on. Mr. Condek, I wanted to thank you again for everything that you've done for this village. And it's going to be hard to see you go, for sure. But,
Yeah, July of 23.
exactly, yeah. Hopefully you will come back and help out occasionally. But you've done a fantastic job and really appreciate it, so.
I've got to work out the terms with Mr. Condick, but I think probably all the hot dogs he can eat.
The world doesn't know I'm a devotee of 7-Eleven hot dogs, which normally they're $2.11. They went down to $1.06. I was ecstatic.
Hot dogs and maybe a couple sleeves of golf balls.
His own grill roller.
A second.
We have to find out what kind of Franks they are, though.
I'd rather not.
I did have one other comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Mark, isn't the Parks and Recs, or is the village putting on the garage sale this year in August?
Yes, August 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah, that's one other thing that we didn't mention, that if anybody's watching, then make them aware that that's coming up in August.
Okay.
I'm also holding another voter safety course.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's in August.
14th.
14th.
We're going to do it down here. Open it up a little bit more because we can. We're limited to 30 people, and so it's going to be good. I'm done.
With that, I think I heard a motion from Mr. Malik to go into closed session.
Second.
That was a second by Duff. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries on that one.
Brian, that report, I need you